died in 1956 in East Berlin. He was 58 years old of a heart attack. Oh, Helena Weigel died in May of 1971 in Paris, a month after breaking her ribs on stage, where she had been playing the mother, a role she originated 40 years earlier for what would be the last time. Oh, and in November 9th, 1989, when the Berlin Wall finally came down, dismantled by the crowds who had gathered there in the night. I'd like to think that Michelle made it back, because I hear it was the greatest block party in the history of the world. By then I was living in New York studying to be an actor. Music fills the air of Washington Square Park. Disco really has died, but new sounds are happening. The Bread and Puppet Theater has parked their school bus on Bleecker Street, and they are serving up fresh sourdough, and the idea that art is as necessary as bread, and that theater should and could blur the lines between art and life. Suddenly, doing water ballet to the mourner's cottage doesn't seem like the worst idea ever. By then, I was in New York, and I went back to Miami, and I stayed on that strip that now housed fancy Art Deco hotels and impossible to get in restaurants. And where were the old Jews gathering to play gin rummy and mahjong, to bronze themselves in the Florida sun that in and of itself is a blessing, a bracha. So many of us never get to feel. I tried to find even like a small gathering of people kibitzing over a deck of cards, but they were all gone. I drove to the park and on Northwest 17th Avenue where Daryl had gone to the protest, and things had gotten out of hand, but that was so long ago. That was before Daryl and I just lost touch. It isn't like now with cell phones and social media. Back then you could really just lose people. I thought things would be different by now, but dark times keep coming, and understanding grows at a snail's pace, while the time given to us on earth never slows down, right? Except here in the theater, right, where it is 6 months before my grandparents die in quick succession. It's 20 years before I become a mother myself. 22 years before there is a stretch of Northwest 17th Avenue renamed Arthur Lee McDuffie Avenue. But, okay, right now, I am still young, and it is about to be the start of a brand new decade, the decade that I thought would be our decade. It is December 1979. I am at JT's Disco, and I am about to fall in love with a beautiful boy named Daryl. And I just want, more than anything, to dance. developing it for a while, and this is an incredible space here that Misha Rishnikov often, and now with the theater, he's extending this process where people really get to develop. It used to be more historically focused on dance, of course. So does anybody have any questions or comments, or I can kind of guide us to certain things? Hi. Yeah, oh my God. Okay, hi. Hi.
You can't make this up. Today in Washington, D.C., they were dismantling the street. They were literally breaking apart the street where it was painted Black Lives Matter.
Oh.
And there was someone on NPR talking about how she took a chunk of the asphalt and she wanted the part that was, when I first heard it, was sort of interesting, what it knows that, she wanted the part with the yellow. I was thinking she was like getting a piece of cake and had that yellow frosting. She wanted a piece of the yellow, not the black, that she was going to keep and hand down to her children. So thinking about the knocking down of the Berlin Wall and this, I mean, it just wasn't enough to paint it over. And it was dismantled. So things going to change.
Yeah. I mean, you literally can't make this up, and it's so disheartening. So yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah. Hi.
I really like how these merge.
Yeah.
Interplay between various. But I struck, it occurred to me that you have that chunk on the riots in Miami.
Yeah.
That went on, terrible toll, very high arrests and injured and dead. And then his mother, apparently, I assume that's historical.
Yes, that is all accurate.
I mean, it was posed, that whole piece is posed like, gee, this is a moment that went off the rails and it was really terrible.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the fact that I can see a few people screaming here. I'm just going to reiterate. We were talking about the moment in which Eula Bell McDuffie actually has a quote that is verbatim what she said after the death of her son. And I think that the thing that you're speaking about in terms of Brecht maybe not wanting emotional moments, I think that's what, or is that what you're expressing?
No.
Or wouldn't want?
I'm saying that political uprising was what he wants in the play.
Her saying stop it.
Her saying stop. Very
You guys were
interesting.
presenting it as
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. And Nina might be. Nina, you are the actual writer is sitting here, and she probably could weigh in on that.
When they come and ask the writer behind the cardboard,
But Marshall McLuhan gets pulled out. Yeah.
I kind of didn't quite catch the question.
We were talking about the fact that Eula Bell says stop the violence, and we're saying that Brecht wanted. The question is, did Brecht want people to create?
I mean, that's an accurate thing that happened, that she did go on the news.
Right,
But did Brecht want a violent uprising? I mean,
it seemed like a culmination of what the mother is about, fighting for revolution, fighting for an uprising that would stick. And this was, I didn't do it first, but by the time you got to the end of that scene, and it seems like a catharsis in a way, which she was not into, when it's like the mother speaks and all the violence dies down. And I suddenly thought, well, hang on.
I think that he wanted revolution. I don't know. I can't. If only Brecht were here, we could pull him out in front of him. What did you want? I don't know that I would think of those 3 days as the revolution in an effective way. Having talked to a lot of people in Miami and having been there at that time, but it's an interesting thought.
It's also
Yeah,
interesting.
I was surprised that I could.
Yeah.
You think about kind of what's remarkable about the play itself and its construction is like the attempt of maintaining a Brechtian device while dealing with the reality of what went down, and the many moments that we realize that we have to break form in order for truth to come out. And I think that what's remarkable about using the EULA and the Arthur McDuffie stuff in general is like how often we could not maintain the device because of the realities of those events. And so I don't disagree. I think completely so much of what Brecht like sought out was not just unemotional, but more specifically straightforward and to the point, so that what was happening on stage wasn't emotional, it was for the audience. But I think one of the things that we as actors are really excited about is how much can we actually push against that, and how much is it impossible to like meet it? You know, depending on what those circumstances are, because otherwise we would have just done the mother. But we're doing instead this we're doing this amalgamation about what it's like for us in 2025 to try to do that and apply those techniques. And is it possible? I think it is, obviously. We got Jessica Hecht.
He couldn't maintain it himself.
Exactly. You know, so it's but it is an interesting thought, and I honestly hadn't thought about it until you brought it up. But that was something we really kind of like wrestled and discussed with a lot in rehearsal, kind of like how often we were playing with the form and the structure.
You know, an interesting thing also is that in the Mother, the actual play, the full play, was very anti-war, and so I'm not sure that I agree he would be for violence, because I don't think that's where, from my research, he was coming from. And I think when Eula McDuffie went on the air, she really was just trying to stop violence and more people getting killed. And I don't think he ever was calling for a violent revolution. He was calling for revolution.
You have to remember those events were happening in the black community.
In a way.
Those events were happening in the black community in Miami. So the mission was calling for us to stop blowing up our own communities.
Right.
It was the black communities that were burning.
Protecting them.
Overtown,
That's right.
the remedies, city, that was our communities burning down.
That's a good point.
Are there other questions, comments? Yeah.
I'm just so impressed with the way that you approach adaptation while also allowing for the different cultural perspectives to stand. And I think that's such a delicate thing to accomplish both in performance and in writing. Can anybody talk about how you approach adaptation responsibly? Like the act of adaptation responsibly? Or another way to say this, what responsibilities did you feel to the several stories that you were blending?
You know, it was a very collaborative process, so I think there's Mas, another collaborator.
Mas is the music director.
So, you know, bringing in different points of view early on, and making and trying to, you know, I think we all were really listening to each other, and these amazing collaborators here, like we all bring our own perspective, and so I think the responsibility was to really, really try to hear all perspectives and respond to them. And we had the benefit and privilege of time, and Worship of Arts gave us a lot of workshop opportunities and space to really hear out those things.
We started the process 5 years ago, so truly, I mean, that part is accurate, that I found the script of The Strand, and no one was singing to me, but I found it. It was, you know, we had different iterations where there were things that really affected us very deeply that were going on in the world as we were. So, of course, the pandemic, but then, of course, George Floyd had just been murdered. And so when Nina, there was a draft of the script where you got to the end and you talked about all of the things, sort of putting not to sleep, but putting into place all the things. And then there was a moment when Nina included George Floyd, and it had just happened, and so the resonance of the fact that those, you know, that was an iteration, and there have been other things that have threaded through the script. It's really a living piece, and that's kind of, I would imagine Brecht would be proud of that. And he, of course, it's beautiful that you asked it, because there are some playwrights who don't beg for adaptation. They find it right. They don't want that. This is very specific. Yeah, Kenny.
I just wanted to speak. That question you said about how you have to be sensitive in terms of the delicate process of trying to integrate all the different.
Yeah, there are some clear cultural perspectives in the piece.
I wanted to give you an example of one song and how we went through that to kind of give you an idea. So the Wading in the Water, Mourner's Cottage kind of mashup. You know, we got to that. None of us could have gotten to that by ourselves. It was because everybody had a yes and attitude, and everybody was collaborative and open. Like, so Musk came to me and he said, Ken, we have this idea, you know, because there's a Jewish mom losing her son and an African American mother losing her son. So what if we took the old African American spiritual and kind of integrated with the Hebrew Aramaic kind of, so we took the Mourner's Cottage, we went through a lot of different songs and we just got until we got to those two songs and Wading in the Water. And then Jess was so sweet, she had a cantor come in and teach me how you go about that process of singing in college. And then what I did, then I took like a lot of the African American melodies and the Negro spiritual melodies, and we came up with this beautiful melody. And I was in the studio with Skip, and I was like, and he said, oh, that's it, you know. So we ran that through it, and then Nina gave us some ideas and some suggestions. And when I was doing it in the studio, I was like, oh my God, I could feel this. I'm speaking to the people, you have people from your synagogue.
These
right?
people are all from
Yes.
us. Yeah, they totally
It was so
from us.
powerful when I was in the studio, and then I was working with Cantor, and we were doing this and doing things, you know, and then when I went in the studio and did it, I said, oh my God, I could feel that the Christian branch of, you know, spirituality and how it came out of the roots of the original Aramaic. I could feel when I was singing that I was attaching myself to the source as a branch. And those are some of the beautiful things that come out of the process.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That was beautiful.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
And it feels like that translates because no experience feels belittled, but you seem to be
Exactly.
pointing out the commonalities
Exactly.
without making it like an oppression race to the bottom.
Right.
Yes.
A bridge as opposed to a wall.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
The image that keeps coming to me is a challah, a braided bread, one with 6 braids, and different strands of the subplots, if you will, or the different, you know, going back and forth in time as a braid, and I'm visualizing it being multicolored,
Yeah.
and suddenly you're back in the swimming pool, you know,
Yeah.
so light and, you know,
Right.
amusing and, you know, fun to think about, and then of course the darker moments.
That's a great illustration.
Yeah.
Love that.
Thank you. We probably have time for one more question, Rachel. Yeah.
I need to take off. It's not an official capacity. But as an audience member, there we go. As an audience member, it made me think of Peter Brook's Marat Sab, and specifically his phrase about total theater. You have song, you have dance, you have instrumentalists as part of the piece, you have scenes interrupting scenes, you have scenes within scenes. Was that from the get-go the plan, or did you have a few of those aspects, and then you added this, and then you added this, and then, oh, let's also have cheerleaders. Oh, wait, let's have the band on stage. Did it grow?
I can say one quick thing to that, but I want
Say
everybody
nothing
else to
quick.
That's a professional, right? Yeah. So, yeah, Skip and I were there from the very beginning. We were in on the reading, so when we would listen to what they were saying, we were like, oh, and then we would come up with musical ideas, and then Nina would say, or just say, oh, you know, and then we would go back, and so it was never the plan. It was just an organic process that we just.
But interesting what you're saying, because there was a draft before I reached out to our wonderful musical people. There was a draft, and we knew we wanted music, but we didn't really have any of the music because the mother does have songs. Yeah. So it did grow, maybe like a challah, like can you keep out of here? We didn't have all of the recipe and ingredients. We were just
It's true to this space, though, in a very, I think, meaningful and honest way that they're very interested in, and particularly now, in the way in which these different performing art mediums really brush up against one another, and how we actually can live in the world of multiple art forms. And to that end, there was a few moments we thought we would physicalize, like synchronized swimming. And I asked Misha's wife, Lisa, if she had a suggestion. Like, she choreographs a bit. She was quite an accomplished dancer herself. And then she said, well, Shura was Misha's daughter. She probably would be great at that, and she comes more from that history. And so she ultimately choreographed this piece. But it is true to the fact that if you come into our collective, we'll find something for you to do. It's like our synagogue. If you have some special skill, let's showcase it.
And it kept evolving as soon as like 2 days ago. You know what I mean? I think that's what's been kind of really great
And it will
about this.
keep going.
And it will.
Questions of Andy.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll just ask quickly, because Delilah, you were there from the beginning, and Fergie, you like jumped right in.
Yeah.
Like, what, I've never really asked what the process is like as sort of actor makers. You're both makers as well, and bringing that perspective to like, that you also make stuff.
Yeah, no, it's been really cool because there's just been so many iterations of this, and I feel like I always was Michelle, and all the other tracks would kind of change each draft. Like, I wasn't the cop ever until this last draft, and there used to be 2 cops, but then it got smaller. So now one person playing all 3 cops, and then because initially I kind of, when we did the first read through, I had like 3 voices for each cop, and then Maria was like, no, it's 1 cop in 3 different spaces in time. And so it's like, so no, it was very collaborative, and each draft was, so different. Yeah, and it was, but the thing is, the heart of it was the same, and the Michelle through line was always there, but it's been so fun to see how it's grown and changed and jumping in different ways. It's been, much more collaborative.
I also apologize to Fergie, because when he came in, we already had that part, and what a voice that we are underusing.
Oh no.
That's an extraordinary.
But he's
But, I mean, what?
Oh my God.
No, go.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, Fergie, you were going to answer that question.
Talk plenty. I'm
Oh,
good.
no, well, you'll answer this. Go
I
ahead.
just wanted to make a point, maybe this is just me. In the beginning of the play, where the counselor is telling the kids that they have to know about this German playwright, it was confusing to me what they were talking about, and I was thinking about it, and it took my mind off the play until I really understood what was going on.
Oh, that's interesting. You know, it's a direct reflection of something that happens when you are introduced to an art form. Like, when you are an actor, I think you probably, or wanting to be an actor at 14 or 15, sometimes acting teachers put absurd material. When I was literally in this camp situation, they had us do JB, which is the story of Job, as written by Archibald MacLeish, in verse form, and we were 14, and in no way, it wasn't even a sort of philosophical or religious, it was just the idea of inhabiting these characters with this poetry. And so, just like you in the play, I sort of sat with it for a while until I thought, I sort of get this. And then you find something that you don't need to use the cerebral part, where you're just like, oh, I get this is just, so I think you mirrored my teenage self in your. And Fergie is the only one. He just joined us 5 weeks ago when we started. Everybody else had worked on the piece, and we are so grateful to him, because I always wanted the audience to understand this person that was so important, that I did indeed lose touch with, but had, as Fergie does, everything you would be so compelled to go with at that age. And then how can you just one day not know what happened to that person? So I think he has been our total, he's an inspiration to us. One last question, and then we have to sign off.
It's a sort of dicky question, but I'm just curious now. The original production had found songs or a score written for it?
I mean, it's scored by.
This is the original.
Oh, no, the original production of The Mother by our.
Oh,
The
the
Berlin-
mother
That's the
had
Berliner
songs
ensemble.
and
Who
Hans
composed?
Eisler did the music.
Oh, so I did the musical.
Yeah.
And I just want to add also how coincidental that the Berliner Ensemble is just finishing
I know.
on.
Yeah.
And
Look,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go see it next weekend.
Yeah.
It's Brecht weekend.
Last.
Thank you. I wanted just to offer what was also so captivating in the weaving, in terms of time. I found myself thinking, oh, I'm here now. And I didn't, and in that way, pandemic, March, whatever it was, 2020, I didn't realize where we were until I realized, oh, pandemic. And
Yeah.
I didn't make light of that, certainly, but the play, I felt that, and I thank you for that weaving.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
always
beautiful.
thinking Paula now. Thank you.
Oh, you guys were a wonderful audience. It's our second night, which is often very scary, and you were so wonderful. Thank you.